interest, University Heights and South Euclid are both, at the present time, involved in this whole walkability issue, the same type of thing we have in our manual. What Mayfield Heights did, and was the wise way of approaching it, I think, is that instead of trying to go through option after option and criteria after criteria, is to handle it on a case-by-case basis. The result was Council, January 23rd, 1917, adopted an ordinance incorporating all requirements and standards contained with this book as part of our ordinances. And we're now handling it essentially on a case-by-case basis, which there's been an evolution. There's been an evolution in council thinking since 2016, 2017. I can see it in your minutes of what's taking place. Bottom line, though, we try to deal with this. If there's a conflict as far as the ordinances occurred, we're done. So that's been adopted. And I see that we're time for a public meeting. I am supposed to be at St. Francis of Assisi for a meeting, and I'm happy that we moved up 15 minutes. I will answer.
Does any member of council have
If there are any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Mr. Belstra.
Fred, just one question. When you're trying to differentiate between the hardship and the practical difficulty, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was a hardship was more associated with the land itself, hardship of the land, and the practical difficulty would be the use of the property. So you had land and use, and that's how I've always kind of associated the differences. But you didn't mention that, so I'm just wondering.
I thought that too, but unfortunately, I've seen cases in which size of the lot has been a practical difficulty. Mr. Murphy, I know you've looked at this over and over again, and what's...
In a general way, and trying to simplify a very complex subject, practical difficulty applies to the land itself. Unnecessary hardship applies to the use of the land itself. So you had it
flip-flop.
reversed. Yeah.
It's not easy, Mike, to try to figure
Yeah.
out which is which and try to put it in a proper pocket. And I know we're dumping it off on you guys, and I know you haven't had the opportunity to hear the testimony, which is, I say, quite often, quite different. I will be happy, yes,
Mr.
I have two
Ms.
questions.
Talbin.
Thank you. I'll
Go
give
ahead.
one, but I have two, so I'll start with one. Could you clarify, what is the notification time that you have to give residents around property?
the applicant is notified of the date of the meeting and time. All adjacent property owners are, based on the map book, and also notified, and they're also told of the substance. That raises issues a little bit when we try to notify them that a variance is being requested for X reason. We can't get into Y and Z because the property people have not been properly notified. So that's a notification that goes out to adjacent property owners. We very bluntly have not looked too hard at other people affected.
I didn't hear a time frame, though. How far in advance do they have to be notified?
It's within, I don't know the exact date, it's usually 10 days at the cutoff date, and the notice comes out almost immediately afterwards. We are coming up, tomorrow's the last day for notification for the March meeting. So we're coming up on that very quickly. I talked to Monica today about, we have no case for next, as of right now.
10 days.
We'll check and find out.
Anybody wants to give me a call, I'll be happy to respond.
Mr. Murphy?
There's no stated time. It just says that all affected property owners, adjacent property owners, whatever, will be notified of the date and time of the meeting by mail. Now, that could create problems if they don't get it, if they refuse it. Some cities send it out certified mail, return receipt requested. Others use notice of mailing. I don't think Mayfield Heights uses either. They just send out the notice before the meeting.
So it could be just one day. Is that what I'm understanding?
Possibly.
I'm not hearing a specific window.
I don't think Mr. Murphy would recommend that.
But it's, the meeting will go on unless somebody contends that they didn't receive notice.
Well, how can you contend when you
Well,
didn't know?
You'll know eventually.
Yeah. Okay.
Mayor? No? Okay. Mr. DeJohn?
Mr. Kramer, thank you for your service on the BZA for all these years. I think it was 50 years.
Your
you said on
father
the wing?
appointed me, Bob, you can blame him.
So just a
Twice he
clarification.
appointed me.
Yeah, just a clarification on the bocce courts. That was denied by the BZA. However, it went to the planning and they approved it. So, yeah. I don't know
It was-
if, unless my recognition.
Bob, I kind of
Well,
lose track of
but
it, getting very, very convoluted, and I don't know, when does the bocce park become a light used to a restaurant? I don't know.
That's
Mayfield Heights.
When it's in an Italian community.
Yeah,
If you're in an Italian community, it damn well better be.
right. Any further questions?
I had one.
Oh, Ms. Talman, I'm
I
sorry.
had one more. I just need you to clarify, you said that you don't have conversations outside the meeting, right? But that council doesn't have that requirement? My question is, would you recommend that?
I think it's in a slippery slope, what you get into, because almost always it's misconstrued. I can't tell you the number of things the mayor and the building department have been accused of as part of the record of a decision. Not this mayor, but preceding mayors, it's a constant thing. It's one of those things, the minute you start talking, you open yourself to distortion. And so why hang up, say thank you. If you want to say it, we'll see you at the board.
Okay, thank you, I just wanted that clarified.
Mr. DeJohn?
just one more question, and I don't know if you could comment on this or not, but I'd like to know the difference between the Favazzo case and the Berry case. Both asking for the same thing. One was denied, one was approved.
Would have to go back and look at the record on that, and very frankly, as I mentioned to you earlier, Bob, once these things are done, I tell the people or the applicants, you go to council, God knows what they're gonna do, and then I bail out. And the mayor has heard me say that so many times when he was a
Murphy.
council representative, he knows.
Just a clarification, the Berry case, he wanted, I think it was a 5,000 square foot building, and the Favazzo, he only wanted 400 square feet. So it was a matter of the size of the building requested. If Mr. Berry had requested a 400 square foot building, he might have gotten it.
Although he had larger property.
It doesn't matter.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
I think they consider the size of the property.
You can only build a 200 square foot accessory building.
Mr. DeJohn, I do remember one thing. You appeared before us twice. Throughout the hearings, I kept trying to get him to say, what is your practical difficulty? I wanted to say that I've got this equipment that I have to store, I've got these things that have been here accumulated, I'm using this for a purpose that requires me to have an instantaneous access. 2 meetings, lengthy meetings, this is a better test. We never got an answer. His practical difficulty, my land, my property, my equipment. And I tried very hard to get him to say something and never did. And if you look at I hope we still have the tape of that meeting because we were trying to get him to say something that would come up with a practical difficulty.
So the storage of equipment versus the storage of pool equipment, two different things? Or?
Use. You need the property stored on the property for the use of the property. Obviously, if you got a pool, it makes a difference between if you've got a whole bunch of stuff thrown around. It's your use of the property you're looking at. And think about it, the fact you can't just have it for the sake of having it. There's got to be some reasonable factor or use involved. And that's what I kept looking for and never could get. Obviously, we didn't pay much attention to the water drainage. We didn't pay much attention to visibility. Those aren't practical difficulties. Those are aesthetics. We based it on his actual submission.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Mrs. Sabez is free to contradict me if she wishes.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kramer, for
My
coming
pleasure.
up
And
here
if you don't
tonight.
mind, I will adjourn and to my, whatever
Your other
meal that
meeting.
they're serving at St. Francis tonight.
Thank you. I hope
Thank
this
you.
was helpful for the new council people and for us to be
Wait,
refreshed. I
will
think
be
it was
happy to
perfect.
discuss this with anyone who wants to give me a call. My cell is 216-973-0756. I'll be in town until the end of this week, and then I'm heading out to a funeral in Connecticut.
Okay.
Thanks, Fred.
Thank you so much. At this time, do I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Mrs. Sabetta. Second by Mr. Mano. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, the meeting has been adjourned. It is 6:55.
Public hearing.
Well, I have to.
We can start it with.
Good evening. I'm hereby calling to order the February 26, 2024 public hearing of the City of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Balestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano. Mr. Minor.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here?
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Tobin.
Here.
Mr. Murphy, would you
Thank-
please read the ordinance?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Paul Murphy, Director of Law for the City of Mayfield Heights, and I'll be chairing this public hearing. Let the record show Mr. Mano is re-entered the council chamber. Pledge of Allegiance first. This is a public hearing called pursuant to notice to hear comments regarding ordinance number 2024-04, which, the caption of which reads as follows: an ordinance amending the zone map of the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, so as to rezone permanent parcel numbers 861-30-010 and 861-30-012. The street addresses are 30071 Cedar Road and 2130 Lander Road, from their current U2A1 Planned Unit Development zoning classification to U8 Office Engineering, Medical, and Research Building District in the city of Mayfield Heights. Present this evening are all members of council, Mayor DeSico, the Finance Director, and the Director of Law. At the conclusion of this proceeding, council will consider the comments in determining whether or not ordinance number 2024-04, which is currently before council, should be adopted. The rezoning requested has been reviewed by and recommended for approval by the City Planning Commission. The document which is before council is the actual ordinance. The procedure to be followed this evening is as follows. The chair will describe the ordinance. Any interested attendees will comment on the ordinance. Written comments on the ordinance previously received will be read, time permitting. The public hearing will then be adjourned. Since this is a public hearing inviting comments, no questions will be received or answered. Are these procedures clear to everybody? Yes. Okay. So therefore, the ordinance, as I stated, is the rezoning of one parcel on Cedar Road and one parcel on Lander Road from the current planned unit development district to a U8 office engineering, medical, and research building district. This was considered by Planning Commission and recommended for approval by the Planning Commission. So, does anybody have any comment on this ordinance? Okay. Hearing no comment, we have reached the end of the public hearing, and I will consider it to be closed. That's it.
It is now 7 o'clock, and we will move into the regular meeting that begins at 7. Okay, hold on 1 second. Good evening. I would like to welcome everyone this evening to the February 26th council meeting in the city of Mayfield Heights. May I have a roll call, please?
Mr. Belestria.
Present.
Mr. DeJohn.
Here.
Mr. Mano.
Here.
Mr. Minor.
Here.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Here?
Mrs. Snyder.
Here.
Ms. Tolbin.
Here.
Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, right.
Next, I'll move to the acceptance of the minutes, the February 12th Committee of the Whole meeting. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Moved by Mr. Mano
Second?
and second by Mrs. Sabetta. Are there any suggested changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have been approved. Next, we will move to the approval of the minutes from the February 12th, 2024 council meeting. I hope everyone's had time to read these minutes over, and I'll look for a motion to approve these minutes.
Move.
Moved by Mr. Belestria.
Second.
And second by Ms. Talbot. Are there any changes, amendments, or deletions to these minutes? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? These minutes have been approved as written. Does any member of council have any correspondence or announcements this evening? Mr. Mano.
I would just like to thank the building department for the quick action on all the complaints we had about trash in the city. They got out there and got on it right away, and I just want to thank them for that.
Thank you.
Madam President.
Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President. I had my first Mayfield Union Cemetery meeting last week. We met for the first time this year. Currently, the three cities, which are Mayfield Heights, obviously, Highland Heights, and Mayfield Village, contribute $1,000 for the upkeep of the cemetery. They are asking now that we contribute more, so there could be future legislation to ask for more money to be contributed to the cemetery. Also, we are looking to raise money, possibly raise money for renovation of the cemetery. They're currently looking at renovating a lot of these headstones that have sunken or are leaning, and this is probably going to be done in phases, and we're going to need a lot of money to do it. We have one bid so far, but we're looking for several other bids, and we hope, I maybe suggested maybe we could raise money from the three communities to help for this renovation of this cemetery. So that's all. Thank you.
Mr. DeJohn, how much do all the other cities put in? Everybody puts?
$1,000. Everyone puts in $1,000. Gates Mills used to be part of the Union Cemetery, but are no longer are part of it. But they have several cemeteries in their city, so I can understand why they're not part of it. So
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Mrs. Sabetta?
Yes, thank you. I guess I would like to ask Mr. DeJohn if they did mention that if it's still on the budget. I was on there last time, and the budget, the reason for the raise was Mayfield Village wanted to be paid for the landscaping. Is that still in the budget?
Correct. The way I understood it is we are contracting out all those services over at that cemetery for the mowing of the lawn and the fertilization. Now, I don't know if we're actually paying Mayfield Village for that or an outside service. The way I understood it last week is we were paying an outside service for that. I don't have my notes from that meeting, but I believe we are paying an outside service, and those services are continually going up. So now it was discussed if the three cities can mow the lawn, each take a turn mowing the lawn there, but I don't think that is something that the board is keen of right now. So.
Okay. Thank you. And one more. Okay. The Chagrin River Watershed Partnership met via Zoom on February 20th. The agenda contained their treasurer's report, working projects, highlights of 2023, their membership renewal, and their goals for 2024. I can go into a long discussion. They continually surprise the cities with the work that they do. And they did thank us again for being a partner. And their Zoom meetings, over 40 people, at one time 52 people were on.
Wow.
So when we would go to a meeting, 32 people would show up, but they seem to be getting more during Zoom.
That's good.
So they're continuing Zoom.
Perfect.
And all are ready to hook on if you want. Let me know. I'll send you the link. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sabetta. Okay, are there any other comments from council? Okay. We will now move to reports of officers, starting with the mayor.
Thank you, Madam President. Good evening, everyone. The annual City Focus State of the City will arrive in mailboxes soon, so keep an eye out for that. It will inform you of the city's progress, improvements, and plans for 2024. So it does have some very valuable information in there, so keep an eye out for that. On February 8th, Effective Leadership Academy conducted a leadership session here at City Hall. High school students from around the area participated, and our police chief, Tony Mealy, and Assistant Service Director Chuck Brunello participated in a panel discussion, shared their leadership roles, and shared with the students some tips, hopefully, for our future leaders in focusing on self-confidence, drive, and discipline. So we want to thank the chief and the assistant service director for participating. And just a reminder, we get calls all the time about scams going around, so it's just something I think that everybody needs to have top of mind when if you keep an eye out for your neighbors, maybe some older neighbors who, may not be able to distinguish some of these real correspondence from scams. So just a reminder, keep it top of mind and try to keep an eye out for your neighbors. In the spring and summer sessions, Park and Recreation Activity Guide will be mailed soon, and you could check the city website for more information on that. And that concludes my report.
Are there any questions for the mayor? I just had a quick question. When were they going to start on the median?
I don't know if we have a start date yet. I don't believe we do.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, Director of Law, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have no report.
Thank you. Director of Finance, Mrs. Scully.
Thank you, Madam President. I have no report this evening.
Thank you. At this time, are there any department heads that have a report or comment? This is a new portion to our meetings. Perfect. Thank you. Just state your name and address.
Good evening, Joe Chuney, City Engineer. The concrete road program is out for bids. We will be opening bids on March 8th. That's for Mayfield Road and Landerbrook, and $500,000 is in the budget for that. The sidewalk program, the plans and bidding documents are ready. We'll probably be advertising in the next 2 weeks and then be opening for bids. And we're still working on the road program. We're pretty far along. We're not ready for bidding yet. As far as the Mayfield Road median wall, we have a pre-con next week, and they will be starting the following week. And that's probably a 30-day project to take the wall down and put the concrete back. So,
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
end of report.
Any questions for Mr. Chuney from council?
I do.
Ms. Talbin?
Could you give us a status of the cell tower going up in the north part of the south part of the city? Do you know?
The cell tower in Gates Mills, or?
Yes.
It is up. The
is
tower is
up?
up.
Okay.
And it's on Gilmore Academy's campus.
Right.
And they are waiting for Verizon to, they signed the contract with Verizon, now it's in their hands. They have to build their little thing that they fence in, their control center at the bottom, and then put their antenna on the top. They said it was going to be first quarter of this year, so that's rapidly approaching.
Okay,
I haven't seen them, but the tower itself is up, and the contract is signed with Verizon to get
Okay.
started.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Are there any other department heads here this evening that would like to share anything? Okay. Next, we'll move to reports of commissions, committees, and boards, beginning with the Building Committee. Mr. DeJohn?
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. Finance and Audit Committee, Mr. Minor?
We do not have a report, but I do just have a general announcement from the committee that we will now be having quarterly meetings for the first one starting in April. So we'll send that schedule out as soon as we determine those dates.
Perfect. Thank you. Legislative Committee, Mrs. Sabetta?
Thank you, Madam President. I do not have a report, but now that council has the meeting minutes from our last meeting, I would like to make a motion to remove 2023-33 from the table and place on the agenda for discussion and a vote when appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. I made that note. Okay. Moving to Public Works and Service, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You heard from the city engineer already, so I have no report. The committee did not meet.
Okay, thank you. Recreation and Parks Committee, Mr. Mano.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. The Pot of Gold Luncheon will be held on March 7th from noon to 2 at the Aquatic and Community Center and will feature corned beef from Slyman's. Entertainment will be provided by Bridges Cross. Reservations are a must as this event will likely sell out. Call the Recreation Department at 440-442-2627. The 55-plus fitness room will be opening on Monday, March the 4th. We have started selling memberships. Call or stop into the Recreation Department to purchase your membership. The cost will be $50 for the year, or free if you are a silver sneaker or a renew active member. There is a Park and Rec meeting tomorrow evening at 7 p.m. at the Aquatic Center. That's my report.
Thank you, Mr. Mano. Are there any questions for Mr. Mano? Okay. Safety and Transportation, Ms. Talbin.
The committee has not met, but I did do a meet and greet with the fire chief, so as part of my onboarding, and I learned some things that he'll be bringing, very, very interesting, the impact of some of the decisions that council has made and how quickly they're seeing results, so.
Great, perfect. Thank you. Board of Zoning, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. The Board of Zoning met on February 13th. As a result of that meeting, there are several items on the agenda tonight that council can address when they come forth. I would encourage all applicants to address council during the public portion of this meeting. I also would like to thank Mr. Kramer for his still skilled committee of the whole on the BZA process and procedure. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? All right. Planning Commission, Mr. Balestrea.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commission did not meet last Monday, did not have an agenda, so I have no report.
Thank you. We will now proceed to the public portion of the meeting. Pursuant to City Code, each person will be allotted 5 minutes to speak, with a maximum of 30 minutes allotted for the entire public portion. If you are here in connection with an agenda item, this is your opportunity to speak. However, please note that this is not the opportunity for a debate or slighted comments. If you would like to be heard this evening, please fill out a form located on the table at the public entrance. During the public portion, I will call each person up wishing to speak. Please state your name and address for the record. This time we'll open up the public portion. It is 7:20, almost 7:20. Oh, yeah. Does anyone else have any other papers that they're holding on to that would like to speak? Maureen, you can go ahead and start.
Hello, Council. Maureen Reich, 6528 Long Ridge Road in Mayfield Heights. I just wanted to say thank you to the BZA for their really thorough work. I was very impressed with the questions that they asked. My husband and I are putting up a shed, which we believe is going to improve the property, including some landscaping. We're looking forward to doing this in the spring. And so I know that it's before council today, and so we ask that you approve it for us, please, so that we can improve upon our property. And again, thank you for the BZA for all their hard work. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I will call up Mr. Scott Halloran.
Hello, Mr. Mayor, members of council, I'm back. Thanks for having me back, or I guess I get to come back no matter what. I'm not going to use all 5 minutes tonight. Earlier today, 10 a.m., I toured our Bedford dispensary with Economic Development Director Jeremy Rowan, and Councilwoman Telbin. And I think what we were able to accomplish this morning was to educate some folks who didn't know about our industry, which is the medical marijuana industry, about how a dispensary works and what they could expect if a dispensary were to come to Mayfield Heights. I understand that the city council here has been mulling over the idea of a longer-term moratorium or a prohibition on medical marijuana. Currently, there's nothing in the Mayfield Heights ordinance or zoning that prohibits adult use marijuana. But anybody who comes here is going to need to turn in a form that is signed by a member of, or a city staff person, typically the zoning person, says that we're allowed to operate in your city. So my request tonight is, I'd love to either come to a committee of the whole, answer questions about what we're doing and what we're contemplating doing, and also invite you to either our facility in Eastlake or one of our stores in Cleveland Heights or Bedford so you can see what we're talking about before a decision gets made. There is no rush to act on a moratorium or a prohibition at this time. Nobody can turn in an application until June 7th. Nobody can turn in a valid application without your signature on it. So nobody can do anything without your approval. So my request is, let's learn a little bit about what we're doing in the state of Ohio, what's coming to the state of Ohio. There's 125 dispensaries currently. There's going to be about 125 more. You have 1,039 residents of the city of Mayfield Heights that pay $250 a year to have a medical marijuana card that now travel to Willoughby Hills or to Cleveland Heights to purchase their medicine. Having one right in the center of where they live would be ideal. They're going to be in South Euclid. They're going to be in Richmond Heights. There's going to be more applications in Willoughby Hills. They're going to be all around because those are the cities that are friendly. Not all operators are created equal. I think if you were to take a look at perhaps what we've built in Coventry or in Bedford compared to what you may have in your head as the expectation for a dispensary, it's very different, I think, and I think we've been able to change a lot of people's minds by just getting them in the door and doing 30 minutes, sometimes 15 minutes, and just explain the industry. When you passed the original moratorium in 2017, there was nothing in it for the city. There was no tax revenue. It was scary. Now we've been around for 6 years. It's coming around full circle to adult use. And the city's end is 3.6% of sales, which is going to be hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in free money, maybe $1 million or more. I think likely $1 million or more in the third year. I can't guarantee anything, but given what our stores in Columbus and Cleveland Heights are doing, there is hundreds of thousands at a minimum every year for a 4,000 square foot tenant. Our employees are background checked, they're state trained, they're state certified, they all make $20 an hour or more. We're a really good business to have in your community. And all I'm asking for is a chance to have a deeper dialogue before the bell gets rung and a prohibition gets put in or a longer term moratorium gets put in. So thank you for your time tonight. My contact information is on the sheet, and if anybody would like to set up a tour or ask additional questions, I'd love to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Halloran. I have his number if anybody wants it. Okay. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard this evening? Okay. Seeing none, I will close the public portion. It is 7:24. Resolution number 2024-08, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2024-08, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Mark Reich and Maureen Reich, 6528 Long Ridge Road, a variance to construct a new storage shed on the property, Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 863-23-019, in a side yard with conditions. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Mr. Balestreo. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestreo
Second.
and second by Mr. Minor. The applicant presented its case, their practical difficulty, to the BZA and showed that there was an issue with their land. This vote was passed 4-0 in favor of the request. And Mrs. Sabetta, would you like to add anything?
Yes, thank you, Madam President. The placement of a 10-by-8 shed on the side yard where a concrete pad is present. Shed will match the house. The backyard is landscaped with grapevines, bushes, beds, and large trees. Applicants have 2 large dogs and need green space. Corner area in the backyard of the lot has sloped land, elevation, bushes, and trees that would need to be removed. 2 neighbors responded their approval of the location of the shed. One was present, the other was written. The board recommends approval of shed with conditions. Shed to face front with landscaping shield. It was a unanimous vote, 4 members present.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? We also heard from the applicant this evening. Any questions for her? Okay. Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this motion has been approved. Resolution number 2024-09, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2024-09, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Richard Favazzo, 6519 Gates Mills Boulevard, a variance to construct a new storage shed on the property, Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 863-23-041, larger in area than that allowed by the codified ordinances. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules? Moved by Mr. Mano,
Second.
second by Ms. Talbot. Roll call on the motion to approve, motion to suspend, I'm sorry.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve? Moved by Mr. Minor,
Second.
second by Mrs. Talbot. This was a shed request by the applicant. This was passed with a 4-0 vote in favor of the request. I will turn this over to you, Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. It's a 200-square-foot variance. The present shed will be removed. A new shed will be approximately 30 feet off the side property line. It won't be seen from the front. There's a large lot, 100 by 125. Applicant is planning a pool, needs larger shed for yard tools, patio furniture, and pool equipment. Once pool is installed, the green space will remain 78 by 125. Shed will match the house. It was a unanimous vote to recommend, and 4 members were present. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Mr. Balestrio.
Just one. I noticed in the application for this project, because there is a condition for the size to the ridge on the structure of 11 feet. I didn't see that notation on the plans, so I'm just assuming that they're meeting all the other conditions of the size of a shed. It was hard to tell just from the drawing, what that height was, but it's 11. It's supposed to be 11 feet to the peak. So I just wanted to make sure, and it's in the record, that that's what they're building.
Thank you, Mr. Balestria. Our building director was present, and he would be making sure that the shed is.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any further questions? Mr. DeJohn? No. Okay. All right, roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, this resolution has been adopted. Resolution number 2024-10, Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Resolution 2024-10, a resolution confirming the action of the Board of Zoning Appeals of the City of Mayfield Heights in granting to Rachel Poe, 6425 Long Ridge Road, a variance to install a fence on a corner lot that is less than 15 feet from the right-of-way line, Cuyahoga County Permanent Parcel Number 863-22-025. First reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta and second by Mr. Mano. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Balestria, second by Mrs. Sabetta. This request was a variance for a fence. The BZA deemed that this was a practical difficulty for a purpose that they were not able to utilize their yard. It was passed with a 4-0 vote in favor. Mrs. Sabetta.
Thank you, Madam President. This is a 6-foot setback variance on a corner lot, a placement of a fence, safety for child play without losing 1,200 square feet of the yard due to the angle of the side and backyard property line. The fence would be 5 feet from the sidewalk. It was a unanimous vote to recommend, 4 members present.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Mrs. Sabetta? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria,
Yes.
Ms. Tobin,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes, Resolution 2024-10 has been approved. We will now move to ordinances, beginning with ordinance number 2024-04. Mr. Murphy.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ordinance number 2024-04, an ordinance amending the zone map of the city of Mayfield Heights, Ohio, so as to rezone permanent parcel numbers 861-30-010 and 861-30-012, 30071 Cedar Road and 2130 Lander Road, from their current U2A1 Planned Unit Development to U8 Office, Engineering, Medical, and Research Building District in the city of Mayfield Heights. Second reading.
Is there a motion to suspend the rules?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano
Second?
and second by Mrs. Sabetta. Roll call on the motion to suspend.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
Yes.
Ms. Talbin,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. Roll call, or I'm sorry, is there a motion to approve?
Move.
Moved by Mr. Mano
Second?
and second by Mrs. Sabetta. The Planning Commission met on February 5th. They reviewed and approved and recommended rezoning this parcel. This evening, we had a public hearing regarding the rezoning. And does any member have any comments or questions pertaining to the meeting earlier?
I just have one.
Ms. Talbin?
I'm just curious what the lead time was for notifying the residents in that area, and Bridgeport specifically, that they would have gotten notice. Do we
Not
know?
Sure, I understand the lead time.
When they would have received when the notice was sent out to them?
About the Planning Commission meeting?
Yes, about the change of zoning.
Couldn't tell you. I don't believe that was in the materials submitted. Would have been.
We have the building director. He's not here this evening.
Okay. I was just curious in case they ask.
I can reach out, or if you want to reach out, you can find that out.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Are there any other questions or comments? Roll call on the motion to approve.
Mr. DeJohn,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Ms. Talbin,
Yes.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. This ordinance has now been approved. There was a request this evening to remove ordinance number 2023-33. This time, I need a motion to remove from the table.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Belstria,
Second?
second by Mrs. Savetta. Roll call on the motion to remove.
Ms. Talbin,
I have a point of clarification.
No.
Put it on the agenda for tonight? No.
Okay.
Mrs. Sabetta,
Yes.
Mr. Minor,
Yes.
Mr. Mano,
Yes.
Mr. DeJohn,
No.
Mrs. Snyder,
No.
Mr. Balestria.
Yes.
What? 4 to 3. I know we were
Oh,
talking.
I know we were. Okay, well, then it's
Okay.
it's on the agenda now. You'd have, it's only been, so I'll have to read it the second.
3 times.
Oh, 3 times. It's been read 3 times, so now it's ripe for a motion to adopt.
So we need a discussion, though.
Right. Well, then you're going to have to amend it.
All right. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Balestria. Discussion. Mrs. Sabetta.
In the legislative meeting, this has been in the works since 12/23. I think it was tabled on 1/22. The amendments were to put all of council to sponsor and then add the word recreational to the medical marijuana dispensaries. That is what the discussion is, to amend.
Right?
Yes.
So,
It's just to add the word recreation. We already had medical in there.
yes.
But this is just to amend the original and add that word. And that was discussed. Does any member of council have questions or comments?
I do.
Mr. DeJohn?
I would think before we decided on anything that we'd want to wait till the state of Ohio made their determination. This is under review in the state of Ohio, and they're currently coming up with guidelines. So I think this is the cart before the horse in this situation. I think we should wait and see what happens from the state of Ohio. But that's just my opinion.
Does anybody else have any comments or questions?
I do. I went on the tour today, and I would really encourage people to really do a little more homework before they make a decision on this. I was surprised. I'm a business person. I care about process and procedure, and I was pretty impressed with the kind of operation it was. It's new to me, as I'm sure it's new to everyone. And I know we want to make a decision, but I would really urge everybody to take the time to do some more homework so you're making an informed decision. That's how I feel.
So I have a question for the law director. Adding the word recreation, but we already have the medical, and Mr. Halloran was here this evening for the medical. So would that, right? That's what we heard.
No, I think Mr. Halloran was talking about recreational as well.
Mr. Halloran, please come up.
So all the existing dispensaries.
You can come on. All of the existing 125 dispensaries in Ohio are medical-only dispensaries. On June 7th, they're going to accept applications, which will be a one-page to make all the existing medical dispensaries dual-use dispensaries, meaning medical and adult use. And then the 125 additional licenses are going to be awarding starting in June will also be dual-use licenses, both medical and adult use, sold in the same retail location. Does that answer the question? So every store in Ohio would be both medical and adult use.
Wait, Mr. Balistreo?
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Thank you. Mr. Hallen, when you're saying adult use, and, our understanding was the term recreational use.
It's
Is it synonymous, or is?
six in one hand, half dozen in the other.
But is
Adult.
the usage in the terminology going to be adult use? And maybe that should be in our language
Yes.
as opposed to, it may be a little confusing, I would think.
Well, to make it one more step more confusing, the director of the program uses the term non-medical cannabis. So you can call it non-medical, recreational, or adult use. For us, it all means the same thing. But if you look at section 3780 of the Ohio Revised Code, which is what issue 2 is covered by, 3796 covers the medical. I think 3780 is the adult use. That would be they would have the term that the state of Ohio is using.
Adult use.
Which I think is either adult use, it might be recreational, but I think it's adult use.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So I think, does anybody else have any questions
I
or
do.
comments? Ms. Sabeto?
Okay, the House Bill 86, their word is recreational marijuana. That's their word.
That's what I thought.
The governor has a problem with this, House Bill 86, because he would like to add Delta 8, Delta 9. So in the discussion at the meeting, we talked about using the word recreational because the medical is already there. And putting the word recreational only helps us, since medical is going to become recreational, according to Mr. Halloran. But the laws aren't really all set yet. The directions aren't done. So I think we should be ahead of the game. And then, once the laws come out, it'll tell us exactly what we can do. But right now, there are licenses out there.
Can I add something? So when I went to the summit, more of what I've learned today is that as far as rules and timing, the timing is that anybody who wants to actually get a license will be submitting in June. They will be found out by September. And after the licenses, and then there will be, and again, this is why it's important, I think we need to all understand the detail of this, because once they give the licenses out to the current medical marijuana dispensaries, they will also have other a limited number of licenses, and then the state will put a 2-year moratorium on that. So if you also wait, you're basically waiting for 2 years also. So I think it's important that you understand what you're making a decision on and you get your questions answered.
So at this time, I'm going to make a move to motion to table this again.
Second.
Until we have a second. Roll call on the motion to table.
Mr. Balestria.
No.
Ms. Talbin.
Yes.
Mrs. Sabetta.
No.
Mr. DeJohn.
Yes.
Mr. Minor.
Yes.
Mr. Mano.
Yes.
Mrs. Snyder.
Yes. So we have now tabled this motion. Ordinance, I'm sorry. And then also, Mr. Halloran, I can set up that committee of the whole meeting, and we'll let you know when would be good. Okay. Okay. This evening, there are no motions. Is there any new business or questions from council this evening? No? All right. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Moved by Mrs. Sabetta,
Second.
second by Ms. Talbin. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, everyone. We are adjourned.